Welcome to the Deconstructed Woman Podcast, a podcast about breaking down barriers between women, exploring and sharing perspectives of each individual woman's experience, and discovering what we have in common and what makes us different. Hosted by Elisa Marie and Jojy.
Welcome back to another episode of the Deconstructed Woman. Today, Elisa and I are so excited to welcome Sue, one of our listeners, to our podcast. And I have to take a moment to thank Sue for reaching out to us through our email to share that one of our episodes really impacted her and that she was going through something that connected to the topic, and that as a result of that, we asked Sue if she'd like to join us and share her story with all of us and you listeners so that we could, really benefit from this conversation. So, Sue, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're so excited to have a listener join us again. And so will you mind putting into your own words sort of the order of the things that happened and how you agreed to join us today?
Well, when you were talking, I don't remember when the episode was. It might have even been last year because I've been trying to catch up. But when you were talking about aging and what women in particular go through and what you were going through in regards to having an issue with your skin, in which, you were having to do something that you looked in the mirror and you didn't recognize yourself. I instantly related to that fact in that I have since January decided to stop dyeing my hair and let my natural gray/white/silver colors show. Because at one point in time, being a original dark-haired person, I didn't recognize myself in the mirror with the white hair. It was shocking to me about 3 or 4 months in. So I related to that right away and thought, oh, maybe this would be something that would be worth talking about.
Yes, I will say that this is a conversation that I have with my friends. I have a colorist because I'm still coloring my hair. And it's something that I always say, if I knew that it would look good on me, then I would be more willing to try it than right now, because I am not sure what is the of my hair going to be. Is it going to be, sort of springing around everywhere? Like you just don't, is it going to be too wiry or,
Mhm.
kind of a thing? So I am really interested to hear how you made that decision. And of course, just like my own specific questions about, did you fade into this, or did you just decide not to color your hair and you've been having 9 months of outgrowth, or did you do anything to prepare to sort of do a transition, or what has it been like for the last 9 months?
Well, all those things that you just wondered about are all part of the whole thing. Just to give you background, I've been coloring my hair in some way, shape, or form for probably 25 years and done it through a salon. I'm trying to figure for the last at least 15, maybe even more than that, every 4 weeks, because my hair was dark. At 2 weeks, I could see the white coming in. And then I would take a little root touch up, little mascara wand, and touch it up for the next 2 weeks until I got back to the salon. So I've been thinking about doing this for at least 10 years. And many of my friends decided to transition in COVID when the salons were closed anyway. But
Yeah.
I had a son that was getting married during that time. So that was the last thing I was going to do, thinking about taking pictures. There was no way I was going to do it then. So, fast forward five years later, and I'm still thinking about it. And I decided in January just to take the plunge, just to stop coloring my hair. I did not go cold turkey because my hair was so dark. My colorist, who I really love and has really been helpful and assured me I could go, the worst thing that could happen is I could go back and color my hair again. Um, she helped me blend it a little bit by putting some lighter highlights in there. So that when the whitish silverish color started to come in, it would be a little more blended. But I'm not gonna lie, the first few months were rough. I mean, I was afraid of feeling like a skunk or Cruella de Vil, and maybe I wouldn't go that far, but there were times I looked in the mirror and thought, I just don't know. I just don't know about this. It just didn't look like me. It didn't look like the person that I knew for all these years. But 10 months in now, it's a lot better. It's a lot better.
Yeah.
And I have to say, because I have a lot of kind of uh, experiences from, my mom and my grandmother and kind of culturally, like how we look at this. But I have to say, like, I see Sue probably at least once a month, if not more. And when I first had seen you, I was like, oh, this is a very different look. And I want to say, Sue, like, just when I just saw you this past weekend, I was like, oh, I could see the blending and it's really beautiful. And I think because we had this conversation, or I knew that we were going to have this conversation on the podcast, that I actually paid more attention, because I think at first I was just like, oh, she's going for a new look. Okay. But I mean, like, it really has grown with you over the 9 months too. Like, I think that you have in from an outside perspective, like, you have embraced it. And I think that that's something to be noted as well.
I'm trying, and it's getting easier. It's getting a lot easier. So I watched this documentary called Your Roots Are Showing, and it was such a fabulous movie where all sorts of the woman who put it together was a silver-haired person herself, but she interviewed, I don't know, maybe 100 women. I'm just guessing on the number, but there were so many different there were so many different takes on the whole thing. It's such a personal decision. It's such an emotional decision, and it's not for anybody, and it's not for everybody, and you can't really, just because I can do it doesn't mean maybe you can do it at this point in time. It really, really requires a lot of support. And one thing that they talked about is a Facebook group called the Silver Sisters. And I have gotten so much joy and encouragement out of this group of women from anywhere from their 30s to their 70s and beyond, showing pictures of themselves and encouraging the other women that are on this site, whatever part of the journey that they're in. So that's really helped me along the way.
Yeah. And I will say, also preparing for this show, I talked to two women who have gone silver in the last, I would say, probably right around COVID. One of them said that it was because of COVID that she decided to do it, because the salons were not available. Oh, she did say, plus I also hated, the amount of time and the amount of money that I had to spend. The other person was expanding her hobbies, and she didn't want to continue paying for, the highlights and everything else. And she just wanted to put that money into a different hobby now. And she just thought it would be a better use of her time, and also more supportive of sort of a fit lifestyle that she was trying to really invest in. And so it seems like there's a lot of different reasons why people get into it. I think one of the things that I struggle with a lot is that I really love a lot of the Buddhist philosophy. And one of the biggest things about Buddhism is accepting yourself and your imperfections. And that, this idea of it, impermanence, and the fact that, nothing lasts forever. And so the sooner you accept that, then the easier it is to let go of things, right? And so I struggle because I know, like, cognitively, I know that that makes perfect sense. And yet when I think about the decision to change my look, and not the highlighting, but just the dark versus going gray, there's something about me that I just am not there yet. And so I do think I totally agree with you that it is an individual choice, and that nobody else can make that decision for you, and nobody else should, either pressure you or, make you feel bad about what you're doing, because you won't feel beautiful as a woman, as yourself, until it's your decision to do so. So I think that's the struggle too. I wish I could get there faster, but I'm not there yet. But I don't think it'll be, I don't think I'll be doing this into my late 60s, because I mean, that would give me 10 more years. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to, sort of accelerate that conversation. I just feel like I think I'll know. I mean, right now I go to the salon every 3 weeks to get my hair colored.
Right. And I was going every 4.
It makes me crazy.
Yeah.
Every time I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a hard, I don't think you ever get to a moment though that you say now is the time, because I just decided to take a deep breath and do it. I don't know that I would say I was ready. I just thought I've been thinking about this for so long. I don't have a reason to not do it, and I'm just going to do it. And I'll tell you, from looking at this Facebook group, that all these women of all different ages that are deciding to embrace their natural color, there are some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful women out there of all ages, even the young ones who decide to do it in their 30s and 40s and 50s, who decide to go embrace their natural hair color. I mean, it's just more beautiful than you can ever imagine. And when you're thinking about doing it for yourself, you start noticing all the women around you and
Mhm.
and their hair color, their hair texture, everything.
And it's
There's
so, I mean, and it's so funny because I got involved with coloring my hair when my younger brother was getting married, and which is now 20 years ago. And my mom said to me, I hope you're going to color your hair, because if you don't, you know, I'm going to look so old. And I'm like, I don't know. And at that time, which was, I was 37 at the time, my mom was much older. And I'm like, but mom, you are older and people expect you to have gray. And at that time, I had less than like 5% gray hair. So I was really taken aback. And my mom was like, you're going to make me feel old. And I'm like, what? What does that have to do with me? But then I succumbed to the pressure to do it. And then I guess it's just that feeling that I had from my mom about continuing to do it. And and now I think it's sort of transitioned to I'm playing around with highlights and lowlights. And so I'm having fun doing that, which is not something I would have done that many years ago. Right. And so,
I did that too. I did that too, probably 10 years ago. The same thing. But why do women, this is the big question. Why do women feel like we need to color our hair in order to look beautiful, whatever age or stage we're in?
Yeah,
That's that
I was
just
gonna
kind of
say
makes me
from
crazy.
I
I don't
was
think
gonna
men go
say that
through
it's
that.
probably similar to what Joji said, because I was gonna say, like, that's like I had mentioned, like the cultural piece. Like my mom has always colored her hair. My grandmother always colored her hair. The last year of my grandmother's life was, I believe, my mom could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but like she finally said, like, we're not going to dye her hair anymore. And so my grandmother, went like 1 year without her hair being colored before she passed away. And so I think from my perspective growing up, it was always when your gray starts showing, you color your hair. Like that was just taught to me, or like probably not even explicitly stated, but it was just known, like that's what you do. And so kind of generationally, my family has always done that. And I am luckily, I have not embarked on that just yet. But I'm definitely kind of in the I don't know, point where I could go either way. Like I think in some ways it gives me a sense of coming into my 40s and whatnot. And I think that I appreciate having kind of people no longer think that I'm like a young professional, like, oh, you've got some years behind you. Like I actually, embrace it right now, but I wonder what that'll be, maybe 5, 10 years from now. And I haven't had to color my hair yet. So I'm just listening to this thinking, I wonder when somebody says something to me, how will I react to that? How will I defend whatever choice I make? Because I do agree with both of you that it is an individual choice, but it's also something that I think is handed down to us, or kind of, told from, I think I was fairly young, because my mom had me when she was 30. So I think probably by 35, she was coloring her hair. So probably all of my life, my mom has always colored her hair, and said, that's just what we do.
My mom also the same thing. She's 90 and she probably colored her hair until 5 years ago. But as I was growing up, we always tried to encourage her to let it go and let it be her natural color, and she never wanted to do it. She just kept coloring it. So when it was time for me to do that, I couldn't go natural myself. I don't know why I felt the need to do it other than, "Oh, no, you don't wanna look older." I
Yeah.
don't know.
And I don't know, like, if my mom had not told me, to get colored for the wedding, I don't know what I would have done because I hadn't thought about it that much. And it was sort of like, do I really want to put all this work into it? And the only advice I would give you, Alyssa, is that if you're open to going either way, I would definitely say try without coloring your hair because the more natural it is, because it slowly happens, then I think it's a lot easier to adjust to than if you color your hair and then you try to go gray. I think that process is very different. So one of my friends here in Geneva, she was always gonna go natural. And I remember like looking at her and I was, even when the kids were in high school or middle school, I was like, oh, are you gonna color your hair? And she's like, no, she's like, I have really no interest to do it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I've always thought she looked great with gray, but that's also because I don't know her any other way. And I think that's why Sue is also talking about you don't recognize who you are as you're growing out your gray because you every memory of yourself is with dark hair. And so if you don't have that natural blending that happens over 10, 15 years, it is really a shock to the system as you're now trying to transition all of your hair to gray. So I do think that there is a benefit to letting it naturally happen because it doesn't turn gray overnight. And so you do get that, you get the opportunity to see yourself change and develop slowly, which I think has a lot of positive attributes to it instead of trying to do it like, I think the way that Sue did it is one of the harder ways to do it. And that's what I would be doing too. I mean, it's a hard way to do it.
I have to say that I feel admiration and a little bit of envy for my friends that have never colored their hair because they're not having to go through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I do want to pick up where you were starting, Sue, with this idea of why is it that women feel the need to color your hair, and what does that coloring your hair what is that really about? Is it about, women not wanting to age? Is it about the standard of beauty in society and the fact that women have to maintain a certain look and, age? Whereas men are not held to that same standard, that women feel the pressure to hold. I think, the other thing I wonder about is do women keep other women trapped? Do we also, whether it's culturally, familially, how do we keep ourselves in that very small box in terms of what is acceptable or not? So I would be curious to hear your thoughts about that. I mean, you said too, it makes you crazy, but I'm also interested, besides family, what you've said, Alyssa, do you think that there's something else that, contributes to this obsession that we have with coloring our hair?
Well, I want to give Sue a chance to kind of respond, but took a pause because you both mentioned, so Joji, you mentioned your brother's wedding, and Sue, you mentioned your son's wedding, and I have a wedding coming up in a week, and I'm sitting here, and I actually like my first thought was like, oh, do I need to color my hair for that? Like I've never colored my hair. Or I have like highlights, but not like full color because of grays. But I think that there is like this instinctual pull of I'm going to be in a wedding. People are going to be looking at me. There's going to be documentation, pictures of that event. And do I want to look back on that and be like, oh, like I didn't look my best. Like I think that there's such this pressure, especially at weddings, to look your best. And I did not have that thought until you both had mentioned those two events. And I was like, the reality is I'm not going to because of the fact that I'm the oldest bridesmaid in the wedding. And I feel like I need to, kind of represent my age and, embrace that. So but I had kind of this like thought process of, I think we have these events and things where there's societal expectations for, you're supposed to look a certain way, you're supposed to present yourself. And I think that both of you talked about having those pressures that led you there.
Sue, how, like,
I agree with everything you said, Joji. I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's all sorts of things. It's our family, it's our society, it's people around us. Um, I don't know. I didn't have one event other than, you're starting to look like you're getting older and you don't want to. You want to look like you're young. One of the hardest things when I started this was having my 6-year-old grandson say, "You have white hair. That means you're old." I
oh,
mean, out of the mouth of babes. But I do have to say, I looked at people's responses to me and what I was doing in 3 categories. The one group of mostly women that were very encouraging all along the way. "Oh, your hair is going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. Keep going. You look wonderful. Um, oh, it's going to feel so free. You're going to save so much money." All the reasons. So many people encouraged me. But and then there were some people that said some negative things or some little snarky things, like, "Why would you do that?" And those people, for one, were dyeing their hair and they were older than me. So I had to think of that as a reflection on them and not me, and not take that personally. But the worst was the people that didn't say anything at all, and maybe just gave me a look because I judged that, oh gosh, they they don't like it. They think it makes me look older, blah blah blah, whatever the excuse may be. That was even hard. That was harder to have a
was,
lot of people close to me not say a word.
were they coloring their hair too, like most of those individuals?
When I think about the people I know and the people that had, yes, most people were. Most people were coloring their hair. Not all. Not all. I had a good friend who even just said, "Oh, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be rude." Well, I wanted to say, "Well, saying nothing is rude."
Their hair.
But and so that was the way that I looked at people's responses. But it's not just, I don't know. It's like I said, it's a personal decision. But watching this movie was very emotional to me because it really does change your identity. The way you look at yourself in the mirror, it changes how you look at yourself.
But I will say that my friends who have gone gray now, thinking about like probably 5 or 8 friends of mine that have all chosen to go gray at different times in their life. Yeah. But like they, like once you get out of that phase of growing your hair out, it's like you start over again and now you're the same person with like a new skin. You know what I mean? Like you don't carry that responsibility of, I'm not coloring my hair anymore. Like once you shed that, it's gone. And then they are the freest people.
I'm starting to feel that. I'm just starting to feel the freedom of not going to the salon every 4 weeks and not spending the money. Aside from the fact we haven't mentioned the chemicals that you put on your hair, and those chemicals do go into your body. That was just a little part of the whole equation. My hair right now is so soft. It's so soft, and there's new growth coming in. It's going to be thicker. It's going to be healthier. So I'm just starting to feel the freedom part.
Yeah. And I really think that's the one thing that I have to remind myself is that once you get to a certain point in that comfort and accepting this is the new look you have or the new me, I do feel like then people like very quickly get over that. And then it's like there's nothing really that difficult about it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like they're old people or they don't do what they would do regularly. It's just once you get over that hurdle, it's like you never had to go through it.
Right, right. I do have to say one of the people that complimented me that meant the most to me was a male cousin, a cousin who's younger than me at a family party said, "Sue, I have to tell you, I really like your hair. Your hair really looks great." That meant so much to me to have a guy complimenting me. It was like, okay, this is going to be fine.
Yeah. Do you think that once you get to that level of acceptance, that your confidence level does change? And is that what he was picking up on? Or do you mean was it actually your hair per se?
That's a good question. I don't know. I probably would say that he was actually complimenting my hair, knowing the process that I'm going through. But at that same family party was one of the people that said, "Why are you doing?" So I don't know. I don't think it had to do with my confidence. It was just this past summer. So, I was only like 7 months in. But
Mhm.
I just that boosted my confidence to have a male because the way that men, that we appear to men is part of how we see ourselves, which is kind of crazy. It'd be much better if we could just be happy seeing ourselves the way that we see ourselves. But it meant a lot to me to have this younger cousin, guy cousin, give me a compliment.
Right, right. The other thing that I also thought of is like a couple of years ago, and still now to some extent, I mean, young women dyeing their hair gray was very popular.
It still is.
Yes. And so then I thought to myself, well, this one might be the perfect time to do it because it's actually very fashion forward to wear gray hair.
But it cost a lot of money.
It does cost a lot of money. So that was the other part. I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to get out of the salon. Like part of going gray is not to have to worry about that. But then I just thought, well, it would have been a nice transition time, but I never pulled the trigger on it.
Yes, that's understandable. It was similar for me.
But I wanted to. Like I just wasn't there yet, but I wanted to because it just felt like the transition would be because there were lots of women in the area that had gray hair. And you can tell that they're young people that are dyeing their hair gray because their skin is much younger and whatnot. But it did look beautiful on them. There's no doubt about it. So, Alyssa, what does it sound like to go gray when you're like 30? Like to actually color your hair gray? Did you ever do something like that?
I mean, again, it's so counterintuitive to what I've kind of been brought up with, and the idea that that gray, that like you've said before, like it'll age you, and on all of these kind of repeated things that have been said to me over the course of the last 41 years. And so I think that my initial like gut reaction is like, no, no, I wouldn't do that. But I think that there is something to be said about that natural look, about, how you were saying, like people who haven't dyed their hair, and just kind of embracing aging in a way that's not, I need to cover it up, but rather I need to embrace it. And I think that that's something that we don't hear often or enough for women. We don't hear you should embrace it. I mean, I remember, and I don't know if we talked about it, but like I remember there was like a segment on Saturday Night Live, and like these women were doing this skit where they were talking about how they had essentially were aging out of the movie industry because of the fact that like they were getting older and they were getting certain parts, and it was just kind of this same thing is perpetuated, that like as you're aging, you're moving out of the streamline, and all of these things. And so I think that for me, I like I said, I'm not gonna dye my hair for the wedding. I'm gonna embrace it. But I also think that we should be having these conversations, and then that's what this podcast is about. But having the conversation about, why are we not embracing aging? Why are we not saying, you know what, I earned this? Like we talk a lot about embracing, scars from like childbirth, or other things that we need to say, yeah, I have extra weight around my midsection because I have children, like embracing that and body positive. But I think that hair color probably fits into that, but this is kind of the first that I've heard of this. I think that it should be talked about more.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you make a good point in that, can we not talk about beauty, and that there's other things to beauty than your hair color?
Yeah. And I will say that, with the rise of alopecia, and more people going without a wig, I have sort of seen that as sort of like women taking a stand for, what is most comfortable for them. And I know that there's in that Great British Bake Show, which I watched, there's a young person who it doesn't wear a wig, And when I was telling her around the show, I assumed that she, might have this condition. And there was an interview with her just a couple of weeks ago because she's turning out to be a favorite. And they did ask her, why, what is your condition and what, why the reasoning? And, she's in medical school. She's a busy woman. And she was just like, he's like, I just stopped wearing a wig like not that long ago, but it's also free, right? It's like you don't have to keep up appearances, and you can choose not to be uncomfortable to make other people comfortable, which is sometimes also what I think this is about. We don't want to look like we stand out because, like you said, Sue, people don't know what to do with you. They don't know how to respond, and so they don't say anything, and then everybody's awkward.
Well, I think the ones that ask me, like, why are you doing this, are looking at it as a judgment upon themselves, like, oh, I still color my hair. What's wrong with that?
Right. I agree with you. I think that is some of that what's going on because when we're much younger than, like I had a friend who stopped coloring her hair probably when she hit 70. And she was just fed up with it. But I know that for the years that she did, it does make you think, well, if this person is going to stop coloring their hair at 50, 55, wherever the number is, then why am I still doing it? Or why do I? And I think you have to come to terms with the fact that you still need being in quotation marks. You need to do it, whereas this other person doesn't. And what does that say about you? And that's all in your own head. Nobody else is having this conversation but you,
Right.
but I do think it forces you to sort of look at it and say, oh, am I lesser of a person? Am I am I more insecure about the way I look? Why can't I be freer in my own skin?
Hmm.
So it is a very complicated topic, and it's not, and I think we've said it numerous times. I mean, each person is going to have to get their own path there because it doesn't apply. There's no formula, for it. And you have to struggle. You do have to struggle through it, definitely, to be able to understand what the beauty, how you define beauty and what that beauty looks like for you at this age. I definitely think that is very, very difficult. The one thing that the documentary, Your Roots Are Showing, also brought together was like a feminist angle about going gray. And I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that. I don't know if I feel less of a feminist because I still continue to color my hair. What are both your thoughts about feminism and coloring your hair, not coloring your hair? Do you think that they go together or not?
I don't know. That doesn't really have any part in my journey. So I don't really relate to that.
I think how I hear that
And
is the idea that instead of the judgment and the judgmental kind of comments and things like that, that like we rally behind each other. Like, I mean, that's what I'm hearing through that is instead of, when if one of your friends chooses to, stop coloring their hair, that instead of the comments of like, why are you doing that? To not see it as a reflection of you, but to embrace it and say, that's awesome. That's great. Like that, you are moving in that direction. Like, I think that encouragement and that feminine support, which again, I think is missing in a lot of these conversations. But I think that's how I view that as like, it's a movement to embrace it and then also support whoever makes that decision. And instead of, again, circling it back to yourself, seeing that as that person is making that transition and being there for them.
Well, I definitely agree with that we all need to encourage each other as women in whatever part of our hair journey we're in. And that's, again, one of the reasons I really like this Silver Sisters group is because there is zero negativity and only support and encouragement. So, yes, we do need to see more of women standing together to support each other, for sure.
there's so many ways that women don't support each other. I had a woman who I'm not quite sure what the true intent of this conversation was, but I have long hair, and this woman who is older than me said, I really don't think women our age should have long hair. And I was just like, what? And I was sort of shocked that somebody was commenting, and it took me a moment to register. She was talking about me, like I should have long hair, but she said she didn't think women our age should have long hair. So it took me like a minute to figure out what was happening. Um, and but that it left a mark on me for a long time. And I remember thinking about it and saying, gosh, I wish I had thought on my feet and said, I think women should do whatever makes them feel good about themselves. Like, it doesn't really matter if you have long hair, short hair, no hair. Like, as long as you feel beautiful, what difference does it make? And sort of like, why are you telling me this idea of basically like, cut your hair? You're too old to have hair. And she was at least 10 years older than me. So I was really confused by all of it. And so I just find it interesting that women do have a really hard time just letting other women be. And I think that gray hair is just one example of how we don't stand up for each other, don't support each other. And so, there's so many different situations where I think I need to have a clever retort in the future. Like if people say, why are you not coloring your hair? To sort of say, well, is this a question for me or is this really about you? Because I think that's what it's really about. Just like my mom had said, what, if you don't color your hair, you're going to make me feel old or look old. And I was like, really? Because you're my mom. You are older than me. Like what, but I do feel like that's the part of us that we don't like to, sort of show other people, right? That we are feeling bad. But it should have nothing to do with me. Like I'm separate from you. So I do feel like we need to help women sort of rally around each other. And not take it so personally when somebody said that to us, but also to maybe help them understand that, they're being sort of rude or it's uncalled for. It's not their opinion. I don't know if there's a kind way to do that. Do they advise the Silver sisters? Did they tell you how to handle those conversations? Maybe there's some good advice out there.
Some people have clever words for those type of situations. And I'm kind of like you said, I don't think of them at the moment. I think of them later, like, an hour later or the next day, like, oh, what I really should have said is this. But I guess I would just like to say that, it's a very personal decision. It's a very personal decision. And, if you're asking, why am I doing that? I'm doing it for a lot of reasons, time, money, no chemicals. I want healthier hair, a lot of reasons, not just one.
Right.
But the bottom line is that we need to support and encourage each other as women and not judge somebody that makes a decision different than ours.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that I talked to a lot of people in the last week about the topic for today, and I've had nothing but a lot of support for the fact that, there is a place for us to talk about issues that are very personal to being a woman. And I think that's where it's great as we talk about these issues and bring them out of the open. There's going to be people who hear this discussion and realize that, it is hurtful when you make sort of a backhanded kind of question that way. It's hurtful to the woman and you may not realize that, but it is something that, even if you're going through the process, you're not 100% sure about. And the last thing you need is somebody to make you doubt yourself. When you're, when you're halfway in, you can't turn after you've gotten that far because it's so painful. And so, it's a very brave thing that you're doing still. And I know it's brave if I'm not there yet. But at the same time, I am so inspired by the fact that you're feeling comfortable in your own skin and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's very, very encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I feel like I have probably another 6 months to go until I get rid of all the old color, which, when they lightened it up a little bit, what was dark now turned a very light brown. In fact, somebody told me it was golden, so I have silver and gold together. But yeah, I'm feeling like I am seeing the light at the end of the tunnel right now, and I am feeling better about my commitment to do it. And as my hairdresser said, what's the worst thing that could happen? You decide to color it again.
Yes.
So, but I am not going to do that. I'm in it, and I'm going to see it through.
Well, I think it's also great that your colorist was so supportive. My colorist is also willing to do whatever I want. but I think she's probably a little bit more in the line of, coloring. If coloring makes you feel confident, then do what makes you most confident, kind of. But I think that if I told her, yeah, I'd like to go gray, she'd be like, okay, there's these different options that you could do on how you want to approach it. So I think it's also really important to have a colorist that sees the vision and isn't, going to discourage you from doing it.
Absolutely. No, mine was great and supported anything. And I had been talking about it with her for years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Elisa, any final thoughts?
No, I was going to say, I think I was looking at the, this has been a great conversation. Sue, thank you again for bringing it to us and the Deconstructed Women podcast, because I think that, these are the kind of conversations that we want to have to be able to really highlight that. So, the very different experiences that we all have, I think that we always come back to, we need to embrace each other. We need to support. And so these conversations are what we love to hear and to be brought to us. So thank you again for that. I will close us out, Joji, if you're all right with that. And, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this conversation. If this has inspired you or there's something that you'd like to talk about, you're always welcome to comment on the podcast, send us an email, join us in our Facebook group. There's so many ways that we would love to hear from you. And so until next time, we look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Deconstructed Woman. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, rate this episode, or subscribe to be notified of all new content. We want to hear from you, our listener. Do you have thoughts on the discussions we're having? Want to share topic suggestions? Or want to join us for a topic that you're passionate about? Contact us at our email address, thedeconstructedwoman@gmail.com.